Might be you are going to think like they are already big, they are already high. How can I add value? There's a different ways you can add values. One of the example that I always give.
How do they trust that what you're going to do is going to be of a certain, caliber or of a certain quality that they are expecting or that they have been putting out with other podcasters?
That's a really interesting question. So the big thing is how much you are stick with your process. It's not about just hey, you are reaching out to someone and hey, I would love to. Sometimes you have to be stick with the process. There's a two process that you can follow. One is,
What are the main reasons why someone should start a podcast? What are the benefits to them apart from maybe building thought leadership? What are the other benefits that someone who's doing a podcast can really gain?
see, podcast can help in many ways, not just one. If I can give you a legendary example, which is a Think and Grow Rich book. Your podcast, as a podcast host, you are getting somebody's wisdom, somebody's consulting call for free by asking your questions. And on podcast, people is share their wisdom. They are willing to share that wisdom because they know that I am also here to serve my audience. I am also here to add value. There's nothing that I can hurt. One of my mentors used to say like, it's not about who is here right now, who is present here right now. It's about who is here after 10 years. The thing is, if you really think that this one thing will transform your life, this one thing will transform your journey, you need to be in the moment.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Killer Sales Engine podcast. My name is Aum Janakiram, and I am excited to bring on this next guest for you because he is someone who has been walking the talk and actually doing the hard work that goes into making podcasts and actually promoting the very fact that people need to use podcasts to be able to sell themselves much, much better. So with me, I have Nilesh Jain. Welcome to the Killer Sales Engine podcast with Aum Janakiram. And welcome, Nilesh, to the Killer Sales Engine podcast. How's it going?
Thank you, Nia. It's really honor and pleasure to be here on your podcast. So thank you so much for inviting. I'm super excited for this podcast.
No, the honor is all mine, man. I have to say, I have to admit that the reason why I started this after maybe 2 years of procrastination was all thanks to you and your 3-day podcast challenge. And, it was really something that gave me that little bit of push to say, okay, it's not that hard. You know what to do. Just get into get into it, and then you'll figure it out as you go. And of course, with people like you to guide, the challenge becomes less and less and less. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I would love to hear more about how you built up this great library of podcasts with so many special people, and what exactly works and what doesn't work, especially in the Indian market. That's what we're here to talk about. But before that, let's talk about you and your story. I mean, we'd love to hear, like, what's your story? How did you get into this space, and what exactly has been motivating you into getting into podcasts?
Thank you so much, Om, for asking this question, by the way. So the idea to start podcast is in 2020, September, from a book called .com Secret. That's where the seeding of podcasting happened for me. It's a book by Russell Brunson. And for 10 months, I didn't take initiative just because of all my limiting belief that I am not an expert to do something. So if I go deep in the story of this one thing, I am a student of computer science, but I didn't pursue that path. Then I pursue a path of selling home loan services. I did that job for 10 months and then COVID hit. So I lost the particular job in COVID. And then I'm like, what is the next step for me? So I searched this famous keyword like how to make money online. This is a keyword I search, and I am sure a lot of people who is watching this podcast have searched this keyword as well. So that's where the affiliate marketing, Amazon blogging, all of sort of things have comes in the picture. And only during that time I started get to know about Russell Brunson and his book .com Secret that I just mentioned previously. From there I got an idea to start my interview podcast. But for initial 10 months I didn't take initiative. And I say that because of my own limitation of my own thought process that I'm not good enough. I don't have a good communication skills. I'm not sure how can I invite industry leaders. And even before inviting industry leaders, this is a question in my mind: why should somebody an expert comes to me and give an interview to me. This all limiting belief was there, but in 2021 I started with Facebook Live, uh, because Russell Brunson said if you do 365 days of Facebook Live, your life will transform. So I thought, let's take this initiative. I take that initiative. I did a 365 days of Facebook Live, and first 100 days when I completed, somebody reached out to me and he said, hey, let's do a podcast on your profile. I think you have built a good audience. Like, this is what I want to do. And opportunity coming to me by universe, not by me. So I grabbed that opportunity, and that same time, person from Singapore, he become my mentor. He guide me how to launch podcast, how to do interviews with experts. He invite me for his coaching program, and I joined that. And because of working with mentor, working with right people, today I'm able to host interview with a lot of experts, and a lot of personality with whom I thought that once in a life I can take a photo with them, or once in a life I can meet them, hug them, but I got opportunity to talk with them for 1 hour, for 2 hour. That is how the journey began. A boy who is not comfortable to give interview to get a job for himself, to hosting interview with the industry leaders, experts, the people who is running uh, business of multi-million dollar and billion dollar. So that is a quick and short intro I wanted to cover up.
Amazing. Going from having limiting beliefs to trying to figure out exactly what you want to do in terms of making money, especially online during COVID time, and then getting into a rhythm thanks to a book, a mentor, getting into a rhythm where you've been able to be consistent, and then opportunities coming to you. And that showed you the path to where you want to go and where you are right now growing. And if I'm not mistaken, till date, you've done over 150 podcasts with multiple guests. Is that right?
Yeah, that's truth.
Amazing, amazing. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of dedication. And, speaking of, getting experts on the show, like you said, people will say, who am I to speak to this person? And, how do I even get in touch with someone like that? What was your strategy?
I simply follow KLT framework, which is known, like, and trust factor. You need to establish yourself as a known in front of your dream guest. Then you are becoming a likable person. That means you are consistently showing up in front of your dream guest. And once the known and like factor is establishing, the trust is already there. This is where you can ask them, approach them that, hey, I have an interview podcast. I would love to invite you. So I follow simple KLT framework, which is known, like, and trust factor. You need to present or be in front of your dream guest. This is the key important point for inviting any industry leader that you wanted to interview.
And what's the best way to get in front of them?
The best way is you can use social media if they are active on social media, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or any other platform where they are active the most. You need to be there. You need to be there, and you have to be consistently persistent in front of them and adding value into their life, not just randomly saying, hey, nice talking to you. Hey, thank you for doing this. No, you have to present yourself that, yes, this person actually makes some kind of impact in my life. Whatever message or whatever way you are communicating with them, you have to go with the gratitude point of view, not kind of fan point of view. There's a difference between a fan person, and there's a difference between a going as a gratitude with the gratitude, right? So if you are going to be just fanboy, they are only going to treat you like fanboy. You also need to understand that point. So you need to go that, okay, whatever you have done for me, I applied it in my life and I have transformed it in this way. That's how you are going to build that high authority for yourself and adding value. We are talking the point of adding value. Adding value is, might be you are going to think like, they are already big, they are already high, how can I add value? There's a different ways you can add values. One of the example that I always give is, one of my dream guests have her funnel ready with her, but in her funnel there's a little bit of changes needed, and she already started running the ads on that one funnel. But there's a huge problem she's going to get if she don't make some changes in that funnel. So I just give that, hey, I just noticed your the changes that is required for your funnel, and then you are going to see a huge transformation with your funnel, sales funnel, and all of this. She got the good value. That's where the first step, I build relationship. One more value example is, if they are posting any kind of content, And if you can add on your words, if you can add on your flavor and just reply back to that content, that is another way of adding value into their life. This is how you can build yourself in front of them, build your presence, persistent consistency in front of them. That's the big thing you need to keep in mind.
Awesome. That's amazing. I mean, adding value is something that's really very a confusing term for a lot of people. And you've just given some two very important golden nuggets as to how to do that. Being able to, find something that they did not see or they missed and pointing that out, and that's going to save them millions maybe of dollars possibly.
Yeah.
And the next aspect is just adding your story, your personalization to the comments or reposting their posts and sharing it with your audience so that they also get a wider reach. And that's already a great way to show that you are willing to come first and add value rather than being a fanboy. Oh, you're so awesome, you're so great. You're like, hey, I'm an authority in my market. I'd like to share your content with my audience who might benefit from your content. And that's always welcome by anyone, whether they're big or small. I think, this is something which is a universal belief that, you must be a go-giver. And that's exactly what you have been doing, Nilesh. Fantastic. And I think, we talked about the know, like, and trust. So definitely knowing about you is one aspect. And the second part you talked about was the trust. So how could someone start to trust you? I mean, they just met you, or you've just spoken to them and you've said, hi, I want you to be on my podcast. How do they trust that what you're going to do is going to be of a certain caliber or of a certain quality that they are expecting or that they have been putting out with other podcasters?
Yeah. So, by the way, this is a very, very good question that you have asked, and nobody have asked me till now. That's a really interesting question. So, the big thing is when people trust you. So, your first step, if you are, I'm talking from two scenarios. If you are somebody who is a very, very beginner, you are starting your podcast at initial stage, or doing first, second, that point of time you need to reach out to the nearby connection of yours and inviting them as a guest. So the first and most important. So once you are done with the at least 5 to 10 episode, you can definitely have the number with you that hey, I have done 10 episode with this kind of people. So you can also see that the friend of friend is a friend. So if you have done podcast with X person and you wanted to invite Z person, you can see that X and you are yourself is a Y. So you can see this X is connected with Z. Let me ask him by using his name as well. This is one of the way to build trust. At initial stage or the framework, you can also follow the known, like, and trust. So your focus is more on known and like for at least a month or more than that. Month is a very short duration that I am telling you. Sometimes it takes to be persistent with your dream guest for 6 months. I did a interview with one of the very industry leader, and for that I have to wait or have to be persistent for 6 months. They also see the caliber of you, how much caliber you are with your persistency, how much you are stick with your process. It's not about just hey, you are reaching out to someone and hey, I would love to. Sometimes you have to be stick with the process. There's a two process that you can follow. One is if you are doing podcast consistently, you can use the name of other people that hey, I have done the podcast with XYZ, which they also knows. And second is focus a lot on known and like factor as much as you can. There's a complete process I coach on my program, like which take around 2 hours or two sessions sometimes, where I'm focusing, I'm telling them to you have to focus on known and like for at least until the conversation is happening between both of you. If it is just one sided, you can just focus on known and like, known and like, known and like. But when there is a two-way communication started happening, how long it is happening, then the time is to go and ask. It's not like you also need to understand like known and like is already happened, but if it is not happening from their point of their side, it's not yet established. There's no point of trust is coming till now until there's no response from them. So you also need to focus. So this is a 2 point. If you have a name, if you have done 10 episode and now you are moving to the next person, use that I have reached 10 episode and I'm consistently doing it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you and I'm like actually thinking it's like a lot like sales actually. Whereas here they don't actually have to buy something using money, but you're actually kind of buying their time and they are coming to spend that 1 hour with you to provide value to your audience.
Yeah.
And if they're going to do that, they want to know that they can know you, they're going to like you, and they're going to trust you to be able to be consistent with your process, make sure that you are asking good questions, that make sure that you've done your research as well, because I think that's something which a lot of people don't do, where they are asking the same questions based on what everyone else is asking. And just like what you said, asking a question which people don't normally ask is actually what is refreshing for someone who's coming onto a podcast, especially with you.
Yeah.
So tell me, like while I would compare this to sales, right, you are getting someone into the door to share some knowledge and to share that with your audience. What are the main reasons why someone should start a podcast? What are the benefits to them, apart from maybe building thought leadership? What are the other benefits that someone who's doing a podcast can really gain?
See, podcast can help in many ways, not just one. If I can give you a legendary example, which is a Think and Grow Rich book. The book is coming from author did interview with multiple entrepreneurs, and he turned all of the interview that he had done and turned it into book. And this legacy is still there. We read that book. The author is no more with us, and I don't know exactly when he left the world, but the book that he write is still here. Lot of people reading it. I'm giving an example, might be future, in future someone else is going to give an example. So this is a legacy creation thing for any entrepreneur, any businessman, any service provider, any coach who wanted to build that legacy. Number one. Second is, you are into any kind of business, and you know that meeting with xyz person will help in your business in any way. But you know that one thing, you also know that I cannot get direct access to this person without having some kind of connection. So this is where interview podcasts play a major role as a platform of your. See, podcast is your platform. I'm saying this is your platform. This is your TV channel. This is your radio show. This is your platform which can help you to give you any connection, any network that you wanted to build, that you wanted to establish. The thing is how much consistent and persistent you are. So
Yeah.
any industry leader that you wanted to connect, this is your way. If you are going to ask someone, hey, I want your 1 hour time, there are two things they are going to give you. That okay, give me $1,000, $10,000, whatever my hourly fees is, pay me this and I'll talk with you. Second is, they are going to ghost you. But when you are going from the point that, hey, I have a podcast, as I said, this is my platform, this is your platform, I have a podcast. And that point of time when you are going to say that, hey, I would love to invite you on my podcast, 99.99% chances is they are going to say yes, they are going to come. If not on the day, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, but there is high probability that they are going to show up with you, and you are not going to pay a single penny to them. You're getting their 1 hour, 2 hour of time without investing that by creating your platform. This is the second benefit. Third is, podcast is a way of a sales call as well. Most of the time, people say that I need to go on a sales call and close the deal. But podcast is one of the medium of overcoming the sales call shadow, right? Because you are talking with somebody for 1 hour, for 2 hour, and when you are talking with someone for 1 hour, 2 hour, the trust, the credibility is already established. And then you are going to say, like, I have this product, I have this services, we are offering this service to this market, this kind of people. And if your guest need that kind of help, he is going to work with you. He is going to keep you in the priority first than anything else, anyone else. So the collaboration opportunity, closing high paying clients, onboarding high industry leaders as your client, this is a way to get this kind of clients for your business, right? And next is authority, credibility. You are leveraging other people's authority is also there using the podcast. So all you
Uh,
are doing is you are growing yourself, you're growing your personal brand, you're growing your authority, you're growing your credibility, you're growing your business, and most important point is you are making impact in the world by doing what you love.
Amazing. Making an impact by doing what you love doing. And obviously, being able to build a legacy, being able to get a credibility in the market, being able to treat this as like a soft sales call and get into the doors of so many people that you wouldn't normally get into, that could eventually maybe lead to business down the line. Maybe not, but at least that person might tell another person who might be a business opportunity as well. And it's amazing because I also spoke to someone, and he said, this is great, please share multiple reels with me, I'll post it on my network. And that person has hundreds and thousands of followers. And I'm like, that would be amazing, I would really be honored if you would do that. And it's just these small things that people appreciate by being able to have a very candid conversation. And I feel that just being real, so that the people on the other side who are listening or watching are actually getting an insight into what exactly goes on in that person's mind. And as much as there is a lot of information about certain people who know you or who know me and are listening to the show, there is a better connection, correct? So let's talk about that part. Like when it comes to the listeners and the viewers, right? There is obviously a lot of content that can be created, but what do you feel are the main types of content, or the main types of subjects that people are really tuning into week on week, month on month, and getting a lot of value, and actually getting viral as well? I mean, I don't want to use the bad word viral because I know that's not the objective, but tell me, like, how do you feel content should be selected? How do you feel the audience should be aware about this podcast? And how do you feel the ability for you to select the right kind of guests and topics is so important for the listeners and the viewers? Because at the end of the day, they are also the consumers, right?
Yeah, that's there's a multiple questions by the way, so I need to keep it in mind. Okay, so first thing first is whatever podcast you are planning to start, as per the podcast, what is the listener's goal? If you are starting your podcast and you are clear with your audience, if you know who is your listener, you can decide topic as per them, as per their pain point. I can use as per their problems, and that's where you can decide the topic. So if I give you an example of mine, I know my clients are service provider, my clients are coaches, my clients are entrepreneurs. So this is the three categories where help. So their challenges is to growing their credibility, their challenges is to growing their authority, their challenges to grow their sales leads. So I choose the topic as per that. I choose the topic and podcast as per that, and that's how I'm catering my audience, and I'm deciding, I'm selecting my guest as well. Now, one more thing you have to keep in mind, like each and every person is not your dream guest. Every single individual that you are seeing on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatsoever, is not your dream guest. You need to be choosy, very choosy with your with whom you wanted to do interview. Might be at initial you don't feel like you might be feel like I can interview everyone and everyone, but in the upcoming time when you are growing it, you need to decide who is the right guest for you. And when I'm saying the right guest, I'm saying that if you have any kind of ethics, if you have any kind of value system with yourself, with your business, and that is not matching with your with the guest that you are inviting, don't invite them. Because or even one more example is, if you are seeing their fleshy lifestyle, and by seeing their fleshy lifestyle you are getting inspiration, let me invite him, that might be not a good decision. If they, until unless if they have no value addition for your podcast, doesn't make sense to invite them on your podcast. And this is a quote that I use most of the time to my space clients, that is, if you, I missed it, you can edit it.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
I completely forgot that. क्या पता मैं कहाँ था कहाँ चला गया. So
Mm.
this is, I'm not saying that it is not a beneficial at all for you. It is very very much beneficial for you, but still you can keep this thing in your mind, like your podcast is not just about you, not just about your guest. It's about the listeners who is going to listen. So if your thought in the long term is I wanted to make impact in my audience life, you need to think in that direction. If your thought is like, by using podcast I wanted to grow my business, I wanted to grow myself, then you can think on different direction. If your long term is like I wanted to make impact, you can use that. Hope it makes sense to all the listeners who is watching this right now.
Amazing. Yeah, I think, the podcast is not about you. It's not about your guests. It's about your listeners. And that's why, the listeners and the viewers out here, we are bringing this podcast so that we can possibly inspire you to start your own podcast if you already haven't. And if you already have and you're not able to kind of get it going in the way that you're looking for, stay tuned. We're going to be talking more about that in just a bit with Nilesh Jain. Thank you so much for sharing so much valuable knowledge, Nilesh. It's not every day that people share this kind of knowledge, and I find that especially on podcasts people are more open and willing to talk about things that they would normally charge for in their programs. So this is a very interesting trend that I'm seeing. So tell me, like, why do you feel people are more open and candid to talk about certain secrets which they would normally only reveal in their training sessions or in their webinars in a platform like this?
Whatever I shared till now is already I teach inside my program also. I
And
give
I've noticed this with a lot of people.
yeah, I give it with my consulting clients. So the big thing is on podcast. Yeah, this is a good point to mention is your podcast as a podcast host, you are getting somebody's wisdom, somebody's consulting call for free by asking your questions. And
Mm.
on podcast, people is share their wisdom. They are willing to share that wisdom because they know that I am also here to serve my audience. I'm also here to add value. There's nothing that I can hide. A lot of information that I have shared is available on internet as well, is available on YouTube, is available on books. There's nothing new which is I can hide or podcast guests can hide. That is just a person to person, like how much they are serving their audience and deeply. The training program, the coaching program is more about giving the transformation by being accountable with them, by being consistent with them, and by adding a mindset into their life, like by improving their personal stuff. This is a big thing in the personal in the coaching or training what people think things do, because whatever the information I have shared is already available, right? Only new and unique thing is about a person. Unique thing, something unique is about you, something unique is about me, something unique is about some of my guests, something unique is about some of my other guests.
Well said, Nilesh. I think you hit the nail on the head. There is so much information out there, and sometimes that information can be overwhelming, it can be noisy, and there can be also contradicting as to what doesn't work. And if someone is going to come to you and ask for your advice, they have maybe already seen this podcast, or maybe they've Googled this podcast and they've seen you here, and now they're like, "Hey, Nilesh knows his stuff. Let me give him a call because I heard about it there." Compared to maybe someone who does maybe know their stuff, but has not really put themselves out in
Yeah.
the way to really showcase that they are here to serve. And you've said it absolutely well. It's not only about the knowledge, but it's also about the accountability. It's about the ability to do the steps in the right order, right? You could do any order, but if you don't do it in the right order, then things could fall apart. And not to mention, your years of experience making those mistakes.
Yes.
Most people don't talk about the mistakes that might happen as you go along, and that's pretty much why you pay for a mentor, coach, advisor, or a consultant, so
Mm.
that you can avoid those years and years of mistakes or expenses that might come up as well. So very well said. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nilesh. So when someone starts a podcast, right, it can be easy to start, right? You get your first round of guests, you speak to 10 people, for example, and now you said, you got to be consistent. You've got to be able to, build that trust with guests. And that's probably the first part. Guests, I believe it's guest management. I do know that you offer a certain agency services to people who want to kind of fast track this process. So I'd love to hear more about what is the kind of process that people should follow, and what is one or two pitfalls that they should keep in mind while creating a legacy that they want to do while doing this.
Okay, so your question is like after 10 episodes, some people are not being consistent with their podcast, or sometimes they give up as well. This is the main
Yeah.
thing, right? The reason behind is even in 2021, when I started my podcast, with me around 20 to people have started. And till now, only two, three people are sustaining it, or might be one or two. One is me, or one is another friend of mine. Most of them, other people is giving up. The big reason they started their podcast by seeing that it is a trendy thing, By the way, in 2021, it was not that big trend. Right now, it's in 2024. It's becoming very much trendy thing. So first thing is they see as a trend. Second is they see there is a might be quick rich scheme, which is not. There is, then other thing is after doing 10 episode, they are like, who is the next guest I can invite? Or might be my guest is not saying yes to me. Next is they are like, nothing is working for me. In 10 episode, nothing will going to happen. There's a sometimes people get 5 year, 10 year, and nothing will happen, and in 10th year they are explode. They get exploration of information and everything. So the thing is they are not clear with their why I am doing this podcast, why I have started this podcast. They just started as a fleshy thing, which is a trend. Let's do go with the trend. Let's do it. Might be I'll win. It is okay. Some people, for some people, that they just wanted to do 10 episode in their mind, so that is okay. But I if you really wanted to do something big with the podcast, if you really wanted to do something big with your stuff, it's about how long you are going to sustain it. One of my mentors used to say, like, it's not about who is here right now, who is present here right now. It's about who is here after 10 years. So if you think that I wanted to do it for long period of time, you have to be here. The big data, the big study says only 1% podcast host is doing it consistently. 95% people give up on 5 episodes.
Wow.
This is a big study, big data by from US, from UK, from all the top podcast industries. 95% people give up on 5 episodes. And do you know what is the criteria to be the first, to be the 1% of podcaster?
No.
It's just 21.
What? Really? 21 episodes is all you need to be on the top 1%.
Top 1%. Yeah, that is a different criteria where you are going to get a lot of downloads, a lot of views. That is a different. But to be in the category of 1%, you just need a 21 episode. And not many people are doing it because they want something quick, they want something fast. And everything that is going to give them the result is a long term, nothing in the short term. If short term play game is that what they are playing, they're going to shut down on first episode, 5 episode, 10 episode, but not more than that.
Amazing. So the main takeaway I've gotten from this is to be able to think long term. Don't think that if you're going to get into this, it's going to be a get rich quick scheme, or it's going to be something that after 5, 10 episodes, you're going to become majorly famous. And if you are
Yeah,
doing it for those reasons, you're most likely going to be in the 95%, which is giving up after 5 to 10 episodes.
this is the point. And one more, I think you can give it. I'm not getting my this dream guest. That's why I'm not continuing with it. But in reality, you have to reach to that one dream guest. You have to be consistent. How much you are showing up to achieve that level of that one particular person. They are See, every industry leaders are ready to come on your show, ready to join you on your podcast. But the thing is, are you really, really consistent with it? They are not seeing the level of views, the number of audience. This is one of the very least criteria. But the first criteria that they are seeing is, are you really consistent with what you are doing? Are you just doing it as a hobby? If you are doing it as a hobby for 1, 2 episodes, suddenly you have done, they're not ready to show up, right? So
Yeah.
this is what I can share with all the listeners.
Amazing. Yeah, it's really about showing that you're showing up every day. It's not just once on a first month and then the second month you do one or two. It's not showing. I mean, you might do 10 episodes, but then that 10th episode, that episode might come out after 10 months. Or, you know, you never know even if it's going to come out at all, because there actually is a lot of back end work that goes into making a podcast that is not as simple as just jumping onto a Zoom meeting and just recording it. So tell me, Nilesh, like, one is, making sure that you can get the right guests to the show. Then while they're on the show, what are some of the things that podcast host needs to keep in mind? And then post to that, because end of the day, unless this is distributed or put into to different platforms, it's not really going to get heard or found, right? So what are some of the tips that you would tell aspiring podcasters that these are the kind of ways that you should lead the conversation, And what is the best ways to kind of market it out there so that it gets the maximum amount of reach?
So, first thing you all have to keep in mind is when you are doing interview podcasts, you need to do a good research about your guest. You at least need to know that this person is doing what and what kind of questions I can keep in mind. Second is whenever guest is appearing on your podcast, make them feel like home. What does it my I mean is suddenly don't just jump on, hey, let's start quickly. Build some kind of repo. You already have built that friendship and repo during chats, during emails, but still when you are hoping with them on a Zoom call or virtual format or in-person format, build that friendship, that so they feel at home, they make them comfortable, and then start the podcast. And while you are doing the podcast, make sure you can think this, if you have any questions with you in the list. Sometimes what people do is they have a list of questions and they are just following that questions, they are not keeping what guest is saying. Some might be you, the question that you are going to ask is already answered, but still you are going to ask, which is the worst thing that you are going to do. So you have to develop the active listening skills with during the time or by being consistent. So this is one of the way where you are developing the skill of listening, right? And most important thing is keeping in question in mind. And then now the time of distribution, publishing. So for that you can create you can, if you have a budget to hire editor, you can hire it, or you can do it by yourself by chopping reels, putting it on a social media, editing it using some tools. There's a lot of tools you can use for editing, and now AI is already there. So the way you can market is publish, create multiple reels, which is really valuable and can push to your main podcast. You can create carousels, you can turn the podcast and write some glimpse and send an email and tell your email list to that, hey, I have done this podcast, go and check it out. Then you can turn it into LinkedIn article, medium articles, blogs, and then link your podcast with it. Even if you have a WhatsApp status, Instagram stories, can put it there, short form of just a golden nugget or something, and then link it to your podcast. That's how you can market it. And sometimes people also run ads for their podcasts if you have budget as well. I'm saying the budget is important. If you have that, can run the ads, some clips, some golden nuggets, and run the ads and then drive people towards your podcast. That's how you can market your podcast. And yeah, one of the best thing I can also share is, suppose you done podcast with one of the very well known person, and that well known person is known in particular community. Suppose it's a school community, it's a Facebook group community. So you can drop your value nuggets that you have get from that one podcast and shared it in the particular Facebook group, school group. So you can get eyeballs from that audience towards you, towards your podcast, right? So which can help you to get grow your audience, which can help you to grow your credibility, and which can help you to grow your sales if you have any product or services. So that's how you can definitely market it, your podcast. You can market it for your personal growth, your professional growth, and your podcast growth.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing all that valuable insight, because at the end of the day, the fact is that a lot of people say if you build it, they will come. But actually, you got to go out there and talk about it, show people the interesting parts about your podcast so that you can hook them to come and watch it either on YouTube, the full form, or they can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and be able to listen to the whole thing. So, I have a very interesting question here. Now, a lot of people believe podcasts is just audio, right? And there are people who are like, no, if I'm doing audio, I might as well do video, right? And then there are people who are like, I don't want to do it online, I want to do it in a actual studio. And there are people who are like, oh, these costs are mounting up. You're like, how am I supposed to take care of these expenses? So can you give a little bit of idea as to what works and what's best for who?
Everything is best for everyone.
Okay.
The big thing is, are you starting or not? This is a question for all of us, you. But in reality, in today's time, video podcasts are much higher when it comes to gaining audience, when it comes to getting views, than audio podcasts. Couple months ago, there's a report by Spotify or some other podcast platform that YouTube is number one when it comes to consume podcasts. Spotify is a second, and Apple Podcast is a third. Reason Spotify was second because Spotify also have a video feature.
Mm.
People can publish video podcast on Spotify. So this is the reason Spotify becomes second, and Apple have only audio feature, so it was a third. Now, if you are comfortable with audio, start with audio. But think that I wanted to move to video. If you are comfortable with video, so turn the video into audio and publish it in audio. The reason you have to do audio and video both, because you are building your VAK, your visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. You are developing all three in your clients or in your viewers mind. I use this example many times in my workshops. When we are a kid and when in Hindi we are watching movies, for me, I don't know about others, but for me, jab main Salman Khan ka, is it okay if we continue and speak in Hindi?
Yeah, yeah, you can speak in Hindi from time to time. I'll translate.
सलमान खान का कोई एक म्यूजिक दिखता था या फिर मूवीज में कोई गाना होता था, आई थॉट दिस इज म्यूजिक इज सिंगिंग बाय सलमान खान, बट इन रियलिटी दैट वाज some background singers, some playback singers, right? So when you are developing your credibility, authority with all formats, with your voice, with your videos, with your audio, people remember, people know that this is XYZ, this is Om, this is Nilesh. क्योंकि if they are just going to listen the voice, they are not able to recognize if you are in front of them. So you need to develop the video format. You can start with video. There's nothing wrong with audio. Podcast is a audio format only, but now the situation is changed. The thing is changed. So podcast is mostly consumed in the video formats. So if you are comfortable with audio, with the time, get uncomfortable or get comfortable with video as well. That is what my
Mm.
suggestion for all of you.
Amazing. And then there's the in person versus online. Again, there is no right or wrong, like
Yeah,
you said.
yeah,
Any best is just get started.
yeah. Any best? Yeah, so the point, I might miss this question. See, if you have a budget, start with in person. In person is definitely best. There's nothing wrong that in person is not. There's I higher chances of in person is best. But if you feel that right now I'm not able to manage my budget, right now I'm not able to manage it, all of the things with in person things, start virtually. At least start somewhere. Virtual will not take a lot of your time. In person will take so much of your time. You need to have a proper setup. If you are not your, you need to go to studio. For that you need to travel. For that you need your guests need to travel. For that you need a team of handling back end stuff like camera, mic. So you need at least need 2 3 people at back end. There's many things that is required, and if you feel that this is really time consuming, this is really going to get a lot of my pocket, and I don't have that one thing, start virtually. In the future, if you are okay, you are getting budget, you are getting business, start moving to the in person. There's nothing wrong with it. But the thing is, if you really think that this one thing will transform your life, this one thing will transform your journey, you need to start, you need to be in the moment, and you have to develop the momentum. Before you are in the momentum, you have to develop the momentum. And how you will do it? By starting it. Until unless you are not starting it in person or virtual, only in the mind, not in the picture.
Exactly. So it's just the action of getting on with somebody, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. That is probably the secondary factor. It's just getting started, having that content, especially content is king, being able to have obviously audio that is clear and video if possible so that you can differentiate between people so that they can see not only your audio but your you said VAK, right, which was video, visual, audio,
Auditory
and
kind of
kinesthetic,
your
right?
actions, like the
Your
in video you
actions,
have a
yeah.
face expression, hand gestures, and all of that thing. So BAK,
Yeah,
visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
amazing. And I think over time, as maybe you get this opportunity when you're traveling, you could probably meet someone instead of meeting someone for a coffee, you could probably say, hey, why don't we do a podcast together since I'm in town? I believe podcast studios are not that expensive now. It's about, I think, 2000 an hour or something like that. Plus they do the recording and give you some reels, right? And right. So it's pretty cool being able to meet people on the premise of not just a coffee, but like actually meeting someone in person
And
at a studio where you've invested, maybe 5 to 10,000 rupees. That shows that you really care about your guest who's coming and you're able to give them a great experience as well.
got
Amazing. Yeah,
got
yeah, amazing. I mean, what I'm noticing a lot by our conversation, right, Nilesh, is that a lot of it is kind of like, B2B sales, where a lot of people out there in the going to B2C know that they have a product which appeals in terms of features and benefits. But when it comes to B2B, it is the company or the person and their leadership, thought leadership, that is helping being amplified out there.
Yeah,
And once it's amplified out there, you're able to take them through micro steps that could lead to some sort of outcome, whether it be a sale or whether it be a merger or whether it be some sort of partnership. There's a lot that can be understood about a person if you're able to kind of research on them and they are researching on you and seeing those micro habits that you're putting in place. Like you said, consistency, being able to ask the right questions, knowing your subject. These are all small, small things that really say a lot about a person. And the very fact that you have so much knowledge on this topic without fumbling or having to look at your notes, it just shows that you've done your homework and you're very fluent on the subject, which is absolutely a fantastic way to present your authority and be that thought leader, especially when it comes to marketing and sales.
yeah.
So while that is one spectrum of the things, right, there are a lot of people I've noticed that do podcasting as a career, right? So do you have any insights or any tips on that, on how you can actually make podcasting a career and make money from it?
Podcast is a big career nowadays in the market. All you need to do is learn the skills. If you know how to invite guests, this is one of area where people hire, right? A lot of agencies, coaches, big entrepreneurs, companies hiring like, hey, we need podcast guest specialist who can invite guests for us, who can manage guests for us. So this is one of the skill that you are developing. Then the next career which can podcast can develop is preparing the questions, everything, guest podcast management thing. This is another skill. This is another career opportunity nowadays in the market. Then me, am podcast service provider, podcast coach. This is an skill that I am doing consistently, and career that I have built, a business that I have built around it. Not just me, a lot of big brands have add on this feature into their business. Like we are providing podcast services, we are providing podcast business coaching, podcast consulting, so many things. In terms of career, podcast is a big marketplace. Multiple opportunities are there. Someone is needing podcast audio editor, someone is needing podcast video editor, someone is needing podcast reel editor. This is a three career. Then from podcast, if you can turn the blogs, another opportunity. If you can write an compelling email from the podcast, another opportunity. So many new career opportunities are there with the podcast itself. But the point is, are you taking initiative? Are you starting it or not? The
Mm.
business that I have developed by doing it, I use this preach what you practice. So when I completed my 50 episodes, then I moved to podcast coaching. I didn't started at first episode. I done my first podcast episode. Let me teach people how to do it. That's not my case. I started 50 episode, and then after moving to coaching, some people ask me like, can you offer this service? That's where the angle of service business involved. Otherwise, I was just a coach. That's how it happened. That's how things are working, and that's how the
Amazing.
podcast career can be done, can be developed for other people.
That's absolutely fantastic. Practice what you preach, learn how to do it yourself, show others that it's working for you, and then the knowledge and the guidance from that, whether it be inviting guests, whether it be distributing the content into various formats, whether it be just kind of understanding how to do it and then coach others as well.
Yeah.
That is something which could be potentially great ways to build a career. And in terms of, I see a lot of people who are charging to be guests on shows, or to be able to have people on the show, or to charge in terms of guests coming. And also I can see a lot of people are also putting these ads, like in terms of sponsorship. Is that an angle which you see even as a potential revenue generation stream, or does that come much much later?
Yeah, at initial stage, I don't suggest this for people, because first you need to start your podcast. Until unless there is no existence of your podcast, why it will guest will come and pay you? Yes, few things you have to keep in mind. If your guest is asking money from you to appear on your podcast, don't invite them, because at the end, podcast is your platform. As a host, you don't have to pay any guest. As a host, you have an authority to charge, but as a host, you are not going to pay to your guests. So this is the two things you can keep in mind. Authority to charge is only going to come when you are doing it consistently, when you have at least some kind of target audience or target listeners who can definitely get benefit. So if I'm going to pay you certain amount, I'm always going to think like what is the ROI of being of paying you,
Mm.
right? So if you have an audience which is really targeted, if it is 100 audience or 200 audience, 500, it's not, but are they, the audience that you have built is really qualifying for my product, for my services, for my business, is what makes sense. So if you have that one thing, as a host you are qualified or authoritative to ask for money as well, right? Definitely. So charging money for as a host is another revenue model from a podcast, but it's not always coming. But yeah, you can have this as a revenue model. But again, point is, if you are a newbie or starting a very initial stage of your thing, don't just think that hey, I can start my podcast and I can ask. That is your mindset you are going to give up.
Exactly. If it's not a get rich scheme, it's not like to become famous. Yeah, it's not to make money, but it's actually to add value, value, value. And if your channel does happen to blow up and does happen to attract a certain audience that maybe other people want to be in front of, and if you feel that this person, is someone who should maybe pay for coming onto the show, again, that's completely your discretion whether you want to do that or not. That is another possible way to kind of get some revenue coming in, maybe to cover certain costs or maybe to do what you want to do with that. But just the other ways of just being that thought leader has such an indirect way of making money, of bringing in some great value and partnerships as well. So multiple ways, you've heard it here by Nilesh Jain. So tell us, like, Nilesh, you offer these as a services, right? So how does it work if someone was to come to you and say, I'd like you to help me with my podcast? What would be the typical process and steps that you would help them achieve?
I need to understand their goals. As per their goal, we create a specific package or project, what we can say, and then we deliver it. So suppose sometime people is just looking to that you can help us to book a guest. So that's what as service we are selling. Sometimes they are just reach out like, hey, you can just help us to manage the podcast, like post production, publishing the podcast, editing the podcast. That is another area where we can help them. And if they just need that okay, you can just market our podcast on social medias, this is where we can help them. So that's how we help them on a specific requirement that they have, and that's how they are getting benefit from it. And the big result they are getting is being in the marketplace, doing it consistently. What we can push is, we can push like you have to do this, this is the next episode that we have, you have to do it. That's how we can push it. Result, when it comes to, sometime people have the result in mind like I can get a virality. That's I don't promise, because it's all about the content stuff. It's all about, and honestly I am not believing so much in virality, because sometimes virality comes and goes. What stick with the people is how quality or how much impactful your content is. If it make an impact in 100 people life, one people life, that is very much impactful or powerful than reaching the content to millions of audience and doesn't make any impact. People forgot it. Trends, a lot of trend was there in the past, a lot of trends are coming and going to come in the future as well. Trends will, we don't remember, I don't remember so many trends happened in the past, and you as well. But what you have remember is some kind of a knowledgeable content, some kind of knowledgeable podcast or knowledgeable videos where one information, one knowledge have shift the trajectory of your life, the trajectory of your business, right? So that is what important.
Amazing. Being able to really create an impact and not worry about going viral, just kind of, even if it's just 10 people, 100 people, 200 people, how can you make an impact in your listeners and your viewers' lives in some way through the content that you're bringing to the table, not just jumping onto something that's trendy or in fashion? And if you're looking for someone to help guide you through that process, Nilesh is your man. So, Nilesh, tell us, like, how do people get in touch with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm active on all of these platforms. So just need to search Nilesh Jain podcast, because Nilesh Jain is a very common name, I can say. So Nilesh Jain podcast is what they can easily find me on LinkedIn, Instagram,
Amazing.
Facebook, all
I'll
that.
be putting those notes in the show notes as well. The links will be in the show notes. You can definitely follow that and find Nilesh to help you out with anything that you need with regards to starting your podcast, even if it's just, a little consultancy on what it's going to take to get you into that right mindset, and then actually giving you actionable steps that you need to start on, or that you need to do to get started and to become successful in due course time, right? Because again, like he said, this is not just start and get rich or get famous in just one episode. This is a long game, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're ready to do that, the returns is being in that top 1% of people who are consistent in this podcast space. So thank you so much, Nilesh. Your information has been so valuable. So many golden nuggets. I can't wait to share the little reels that you talked about with our audience and get them to watch this episode. So it's so much wisdom, so much of that. Thank you so much. So, how I'd like to usually end the episode is I kind of do this little bit of a rapid fire round, just 3 questions, and get your insights on certain things. If you want to explain more about those things, feel free. And let's see how it goes. Sounds good. Are you ready?
All good. Go for it.
All right. So tell me, what are your top 3 favorite books?
Okay, so first is a .com secret.
Russell
Second is
Brunson, yeah.
expert secret. Russell Brunson only. Second is expert secret, and third is, I can say, sell like crazy by Sabri Suri.
Wow. A lot of people have come on the show and mentioned Russell Brunson a lot. And I can definitely see he's had a real impact on a lot of marketers and sellers and coaches, especially
Yeah.
in this space, because he's someone who's absolutely amazing. And hopefully will be one of my guests on the show one day. He's definitely on my dream list as well. So amazing. I would love to, talk to him about this conversation when I finally get him on the show. Next, top favorite personality.
Top favorite personality is Siddharth Rashekar. One is my mentor. Definitely Russell Brunson is always be there. And if I can say, one of very, very, very much powerful person for me is Sagar Sangam Sahu. He's somebody who is mentor, brother, friend, everything. So Sagar is one of the person, 3 people, and yeah, if I can say, I have a list of the people, but uh, very, very much impact they have make in my life.
Fantastic. And the next one is, what is your favorite quote?
Ask. If you don't ask, the answer is always be no.
That's fantastic. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. So ask, 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 and you shall receive. Fantastic. So thank you so much, Nilesh, for joining me on this podcast. I really do appreciate you for taking the time. I know you're really busy, but definitely I will look forward to speaking with you very, very soon and share this with all my audience so that they can get to know more and more about you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Killer Sales Engine podcast. My name is Aum Janakiram, and I will see you in the next episode. Have a
Thank you
great
so
day.
much, Om, for inviting. It's pleasure being here.